Let's go ahead and get started to reconvene our budget hearing number 3 for October 20. And we'll continue our hearings. And the first one for this afternoon is our District Attorney's Office, Honorable Michael Allen. So thanks for coming up to the podium. Look forward to your presentation.
Thank you, Chairman Vanderwerf, and thank you to this Board of County Commissioners. I want to specifically thank you collectively and individually for the commitment you've made to public safety. The support that you've given to the DA's office has been unmatched in recent history, and I can't thank you enough for that. I want to also point out that bringing Brett Waters on to this effort has been fantastic. He's a wonderful ally, very committed to public safety, and I can't say enough good things about Brett. And then also Nikki does a fantastic job working with us on the finance side of things. So just want to put that out at the beginning. I see Commissioner Gonzalez is laughing. He must think I'm trying to kiss some butt, but I'm not. I'm just actually giving kudos. Yeah.
Wait, I was just going to say, I think it's the change in leadership that has helped the DA's office. I
Well-
mean, you'll have to pass that on to your former boss.
I'll let you say that, Commissioner Williams. So with that said, obviously I just want to point out that we are a constitutional and a statutory office. Colorado Constitution, Article 6, and then Colorado Statutes, Sections 21101 through 21308 give us our mission and our organizational structure. The organizational chart is something I think is important to point out. Most specifically, there are 3 areas that report directly to me as the head of that of this organization. One is my assistant district attorney, Brent Nelson. He's doing a fantastic job in that role, stepping up to the plate to lead the best DA's office in the state of Colorado. And then secondly, our director of communications, PIO, that's Howard Black. I've talked about him before to all of you. He has a long history in law enforcement and is doing a fantastic job in our communications and PIO work. We're making sure that the message is getting out about what our efforts have been to ensure public safety, how we are doing that on a day-to-day basis, and he's been really good for us. And then finally, budget and finance director, Lauren Burris is sitting here in the front row. She did most of the work on putting this presentation together, but that's just a small piece of what she does for us in the DA's office. But it's important to note that she reports directly to me too. After all, I'm the elected official and I answer to the public on the money side of things and whether we're fulfilling our goals and being good stewards of the money that we receive from the public. And Lauren is doing a fantastic job in that role. So obviously our mission is pure and simply public safety. It's public safety and achieving justice for our community. I've talked about it before, but justice can mean a lot of different things. It's, I think, a pretty impressive word in a lot of different ways. One, because it can mean that we're holding people accountable and putting them in prison. That could be justice. But it can also be justice if we decide that there's not enough evidence to proceed on a case and we either decide not to file charges or we've already filed charges and then we determine more evidence shows that there's not enough to go forward and we dismiss it. Justice can mean all of those things, and they're all justice for this community. And it's work that we do every single day. The jurisdiction of the 4th JD is all of El Paso and Teller counties, obviously. I like to point out that it is literally Purple Mountain's majesty and waving fields of grain. We have the top of Pikes Peak, 14,110 feet, is our highest point in the 4th Judicial District, and our lowest point is 5,095 feet along our southern border of El Paso County. We all know now that El Paso County is the most populous county in Colorado. The 4th Judicial District is the 2nd largest judicial district in the state of Colorado. It's worth pointing out, though, that in 2024, we will be the largest judicial district in the state of Colorado. That is because by statute, the 18th Judicial District is splitting up, creating the 18th and the 23rd. So Arapahoe County will be the 18th, and then the 23rd will be Elbert, Lincoln, and Douglas counties. So that'll be our most immediate neighbor to the north. This office, though, is unique in Colorado. It's the only office serving a large metropolitan area in the state of Colorado. The closest comparison would be the Denver metro area, and there are 4 separate DA's offices that comprise the jurisdiction of the Denver metro area, serving that entire population. So we don't have any overlap in our jurisdictional area from one city to the next. It's all within the 4th Judicial. We also know that Colorado Springs is growing and will be the biggest city in the state of Colorado in the foreseeable future. Talking about office staff, you all noticed as you walked in that there's more people here now than there were this morning, and all of those people are people from the DA's office. I don't bring those people here to prove any sort of political points or anything like that. I think it's important for the commissioners to see some of the faces in the DA's office. These are the people that are working hard every single day on behalf of the citizens of this community.
And by the way, they just all waved too.
Yeah.
See?
And I think it's also important that members of the DA's office see all of you, to know who you are and how you are supporting the DA's office. That's an important relationship that has in the past gone by the wayside, I think, and I do it for that purpose, to further that relationship so that you all know who it is that is working on your behalf. So we've got 250 total FTE employee positions, 133 support staff, 25 sworn investigators, and 92 attorneys. I want to point out one thing as it relates to the 25 sworn investigators. I'll talk about our homicide on-call team in a little bit, but when we get a busy day with on-call situations, our investigators go out and our attorneys go out. There was a recent Monday where we had 4 homicides in one day, 1 by El Paso County Sheriff's Office and 4 by Colorado Springs Police Department. Our investigators were responding to all of those situations, and the resources with the law enforcement agencies were stretched so thin in that regard that some of our investigators actually stepped in and did witness interviews, which is not typically done by DA's office investigators. It shows our commitment to this community, commitment to achieving good results on our most intense cases. The 92 attorneys, you've heard me talk about this before. This is the largest collection of attorneys in Southern Colorado. I call it the largest law firm in Southern Colorado. It's by far bigger than the Public Defender's Office, which has about 60 attorneys on staff. And they're all doing fantastic work, every single one of them. Our court responsibilities, we have 20 district court divisions, 11 county court divisions, 4 juvenile court divisions, and then 4 problem-solving courts. You've heard me talk about in the past the value that problem-solving courts provide. These are literally solving specific problems with a specialist approach. So DUI court has specialists involved in DUI court to deal with DUIs. Domestic violence court, same thing. Our VTC, that's our Veterans Trauma Court. It's my personal favorite for a lot of different reasons, but we bring in a lot of resources to that court. We're the biggest Veterans Trauma Court in the state of Colorado. We have the best results of any other Veterans Trauma Court in the state of Colorado, and we're really very unique as it relates to the entire United States in that regard. And then our recovery court is really designed to deal with persistent addiction issues. They're very high need, high risk population, people that have gone through the system multiple times on addiction issues in connection with criminal behavior. And they've had opportunities to be either sent to jail or sent to prison in the past. They continue to reoffend. Those are the people that are dealt with in recovery court, trying to get those high risk, high needs individuals off of that track. We partner with law enforcement in this community. We are literally at the center of the criminal justice universe in the 4th Judicial District. Every single thing that happens in the courthouse happens because law enforcement agencies, our law enforcement partners, filter those cases to us, and then we make determinations on charging and then prosecute those cases going forward. We work closely with 23 plus law enforcement agencies in this jurisdiction, including federal, state, and local organizations. We are divided in the office to primary assignments. County court is our misdemeanor caseload. It's really our entry-level prosecution unit. It's where all of our brand new attorneys go to learn how to be a prosecutor, learn about the 4th Judicial District, and learn about this office specifically and how we do things. The appellate unit works really hard to make sure that we are handling all of our appeals and research needs in the 4th Judicial District. It's not uncommon for me to email the head of our appellate unit with a specific question, and then I get an answer very quickly from Doyle Baker, our lead of the appellate unit. They do arguments in front of appellate court and the Colorado Supreme Court on occasion, and do really fantastic work upholding the convictions that we achieve in our courtrooms. Then we have our district court, which is our felony caseload. That's where the vast majority of our attorneys are assigned. We have our special victims unit. That would be our sex assaults, child sex assaults, child pornography, those kinds of things. Those cases, I want to point out, are really difficult to prosecute oftentimes, especially when you have a child victim. It's not uncommon for a child victim to say something years after the fact. And then you have really a child says something happened, and then a suspect says it didn't happen. And then you have to figure out a way to prosecute those cases. They're very difficult, and it's a real challenge for the attorneys. They're often dealing with very sensitive information, and it's hard for juries too. You probably all saw in the news that we just had a mistrial a hung jury in the case with the Manitou Springs teacher that we were trying on that case for perpetrating what we allege to be some offenses against a child student at that school. That highlights just how difficult these cases can be. And then we have our economic crimes unit. I'm going to talk more about this later, but I'm giving you an Easter egg there on the right-hand side of that line about the organized crime unit. Juvenile prosecution, and then felony intake. That's how every single felony case comes into the DA's office. We make sure that we get our discovery out to our various defense attorneys so that we are all playing with the same bit of evidence. We don't play games in our office about hiding evidence from defense. It's imperative, and it's a constitutional requirement that defendants have a fair process, that they have due process, and we make sure that we fulfill that constitutional mandate by getting out every single bit of discovery that we can as soon as we possibly can, and making sure that they have the ability to defend themselves from what the allegations might say. Secondary assignments, our homicide on-call team. Doesn't matter what day or time of the night it is. If there's a homicide that's committed in the 4th Judicial District, we have a team that's responding to that homicide right alongside with the first responders. I just mentioned that Monday, not too long ago, where we had the 5 homicides all in one day, or I'm sorry, 4 homicides in one day, 5 within 3 days period. We had multiple attorneys responding out to that. I mentioned the investigators responding out to that and actually doing witness interviews. That's that commitment that we make on those cases. We also have vehicular homicide and vehicular assault on-call team. Same thing, doesn't matter what time of the day or night. If a vehicular homicide or assault case comes in, then we're sending out some folks to those as well. And then our animal cruelty, I've talked about that in the past. We're achieving some really good results on the animal cruelty. And in fact, we've seen over the recent memory a decrease in the number of those types of cases being referred to us. Can I attribute that to any particular thing at this point? No, but it is a dramatic decrease in the number of animal cruelty cases that we're seeing. And hopefully over time we'll be able to figure out why that is. And then we also have law enforcement agency liaisons. So every single law enforcement agency or subunit has a liaison assigned to it. That way we have good communication between this office and that agency or that subunit to make sure that we're achieving the results that are proper and strong results, given whatever evidence we might have on a particular case.
Just one comment.
Yeah.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone who's here, but also all of your attorneys, especially those who are involved in the homicide team or the child abuse team or the domestic violence teams. Those can be very highly emotional teams to be on, very stressful situations. And so I know that every time I hear first responders on the radio, that we're hoping, praying for the first responders who had to arrive on the scene first. I always consider that to include you and the coroner's office as well, because that's just very important that you all are also there and witnessing some horrific crimes. And so we thank you for all that you do.
Thank you for those comments, Commissioner Williams.
Yeah, Mr. District Attorney, I know that you were not interested necessarily in speculating with regard to animal cruelty. Of course, all the homicide, felony, and misdemeanor work is very, very important, and the priorities. But I think in the arena of animal cruelty, because I think the district attorney's office and your support for this, you took this up, I think that has meant that I think it's reasonable to guess there's a deterrent effect because you've taken it on. And so other people are either becoming more aware and realizing what animal cruelty may be, pay a little bit more attention to it. Others maybe fear being prosecuted. And I think when you have operations like that, I think people think twice and maybe try to find out if they have a behavior problem themselves. And some, of course, are perhaps irredeemable, but I think others actually, when they realize they could get themselves in trouble, they try to make some changes in their own behaviors. So I think it's a deterrent.
Well, thank you for saying that. Animal cruelty doesn't just focus on animals. Oftentimes what we see is a very distinct connection from animal cruelty to domestic violence and other more serious offenses. So that's why it's important to go after those cases at the level of animal cruelty, not just for the animal, that's an important aspect of it too, but how does that manifest into committing crimes against actual human victims? And can we prevent that as well? That's still to be seen, but I do appreciate the kind words. So other services that we provide, we have a UCCS law enforcement intern program where they work with our investigations team. Our recruiting and law school intern program, I want to point out that that program in particular has been instrumental in getting our attorney staffing levels back up, in addition to the support that the Board of County Commissioners has given us. That's something that Kim Short, our HR and office administrator, and myself worked on, even under previous DA Dan May, about getting a recruiting program set up where we're bringing in interns. This year, I think, is the first time that we've had somebody that was a 1L law school student that interned with us, also interned with us after 2L, and then was also hired to be a deputy DA. So we're now seeing the seeds come to fruition, and it's been really helpful in getting us back to fully staffed. We also have the Not One More, which deals with child deaths due to basically shaken baby syndrome is what people think of, although that's not necessarily real thing, shaken baby. It's typically much more involved than that. And then Kids Against Crime, and then our volunteer program. 96 volunteers gave us 13,697 total hours donated to this office. I have a typo in there. It says 13,6997, but it's actually 13,697. That's donated hours that help us achieve our mission. These are people that are concerned from the community that come in and listen to jail phone calls, help with our intelligence-driven prosecution team, help in other ways around the office with different aspects of what we do. And that's a huge benefit to this office and to this community, those people that are willing to volunteer their time. And then we have our diversion programs, Neighborhood Justice Center, which is, you'll hear oftentimes restorative justice. That's what Neighborhood Justice Center is. It's a mediation program where somebody that has committed a wrong sits across the table from whoever is the wronged person, the victim, and they hash out a way to achieve a result in that case. I want to point out that mediation is good, but it's good for specific types of cases. There have been advocates that suggest that we should put sex assault defendants against sex assault victims in mediation, or homicide defendants against homicide victim family members, and put them through mediation. That's not what mediation is for. That would be an inappropriate use of that resource. It's designed for very specific low-level offenses and disagreements. We also have juvenile diversion, adult diversion, human trafficking diversion, and then our prescription drug diversion program. One thing to note is that our human trafficking diversion, I think largely because of the impact of the COVID pandemic, is that we haven't been able to really get people into that program, although we're revamping and hopefully getting that launched here very soon. The reason why it's important to have this program in our office is that it does have a very good return on investment, meaning that the vast majority of people that go through that program come out the other side and do not reoffend, meaning they're not recidivist. So we fight for victims in this community. We collected $5,469,806 in restitution. That's number one in the entire state of Colorado. I think that's important to note that we are bringing in more money in restitution for victims of crime than any other district in the entire state of Colorado. We've gave out $1,162,065 in victim compensation. And then we've prosecuted total 30,934 cases in 2021. That's also number one in the state of Colorado. Those are things that I feel really good about standing up here and saying. It allows me to not brag about my achievements. It allows me to brag on the achievements of all of these people and all of the other people that are still back at the office working hard. General jurisdictional statistics. This is something I think that as we're looking at what's happening in the crystal ball, what's happening with criminal justice, what's happening with our population, these are important things to keep in mind. Population in the 4th JD, so El Paso and Teller counties, grew at a rate faster than the state of Colorado, 5.2% to 3.5%. Violent crime increased in Colorado by 12%, and we're actually outpacing that here in the 4th JD by 17%, meaning that we've got more violent crime occurring in this jurisdiction. We're also seeing that clearance rates. Clearance rates, for those that don't know, means solve rates, cases that are actually solved, has decreased 41.71% in 2021 to 36.34% in 2022. I want to point out some reasons why I think that's happening. One is that there's been a concerted effort by our legislature and our governor to loosen the laws on criminal justice, to make it harder to hold offenders accountable. There's also been a concerted effort to attack law enforcement. That's led to a decrease in the number of law enforcement officers on the street. Every single agency in this district and across the state is running at a shortage of law enforcement officers on the street. That means there's less people that can investigate crimes and solve those crimes. And so it's having a detrimental effect on crime rates, meaning that there's more crime being committed already. And on top of that, there's less law enforcement on the streets to solve those crimes. And it's causing public safety to diminish in the state of Colorado. Property crime has increased in Colorado by 29% and in the 4th JD by 11%, so we're doing better there as it relates to the rest of the state, but still an increase. We lead the nation in Colorado with aggravated motor vehicle theft, and we saw specifically in this district an 84% increase in aggravated motor vehicle theft. That's why, and if you remember back a couple weeks, I mentioned that we've taken a very specific approach to aggravated motor vehicle theft in the 4th Judicial District. Those kinds of cases are not eligible for diversion opportunities. It's the only way we're going to fight our way out of that impact is to prosecute the people that are stealing cars, impacting our communities. And they do, some people will say that these are victimless crimes. These are absolutely victim crimes, meaning that people are affected by having their cars stolen. If you notice, the aggravated motor vehicle theft clearance rates has decreased from 9.58% in 2021 to 7.92% in 2022. Already a very low solve rate for aggravated motor vehicle theft. Those are hard cases to investigate. That's why we had the team that we had, in which Deputy Micah Flick was involved with and was investigating when he was shot and killed several years ago. Those are hard cases to investigate. They're also very important cases to investigate. And oftentimes the people that are engaged in aggravated motor vehicle theft are engaged in other types of violent crime. It's not uncommon for them to be carrying illegal firearms with them, to be willing to carry out violence against law enforcement officers that are trying to apprehend them, as evidenced by Deputy Micah Flick's death. So benchmark comparisons. I want to point out that, you know, at the start of my administration, I launched an intelligence-driven prosecution program. All of these stats that you're seeing are a direct result of us launching that intelligence-driven prosecution program. It's allowing us to see what's actually happening on our streets in the 4th Judicial District and then dedicate resources towards those problems when we can. The top box is focused entirely on the 4th Judicial District, and it's a 3-year snapshot. What you'll notice, and I just talked about this just a moment ago, is that the solve or clearance rates has decreased. And so if you look at the total filed column for the 4th Judicial District, it's also decreased over time. That's because less solved cases are coming into our doors, meaning that less cases are being filed. So that's not a surprise at all. When you look at our comparison, that's the bottom box, to other districts in the state of Colorado. The 2nd Judicial District is Denver. 18th Judicial District is our immediate neighbor to the north, the Arapahoe, Douglas, Elbert, Lincoln counties. 1st Judicial District is Jefferson and Gilpin counties, and then 8th Judicial District is Larimer County way up in Fort Collins. If you notice, all of the case filings have decreased compared to years past for each one of those districts. These are just a snapshot, obviously. I can tell you that every single district has seen a decrease in the number of cases filed, and yet we still lead the state in the number of cases filed, and that's because we take a strong stance on public safety. I've had some people in the community push back saying that we're filing too many cases. I say that we've got too many victims. Oftentimes when you talk about the number of cases, and that's the sole focus, and how can we be better on harm reduction, those are code words for being soft on crime. I want to be hard on crime and soft on victims, and that's what this is really all about. That's why we file the number of cases we do. 2021 to 2022 year-to-date statistics just shows you some of the trials. Some notable points on that chart is that through the 3rd quarter of 2022, we'd already had more felony trials this year in the first 3 quarters than we did all of 2021. We also had 12 more days in felony trial during the first 3 quarters of 2022 than we did all of 2021. And then we're on pace in this year to file and trial more homicide cases than in all of 2021. Homicide rates are through the roof too. We've had increases each year over the past several years, and we're busy. This signifies just how busy we are. I want to point out that our homicide cases are our most resource-intensive cases. I talked about our on-call teams, but we also dedicate specific resources from paralegals, support staff, victim advocates that stay with that case through the entirety of the prosecution effort, and they're very intensive from a manpower point of view. So this is the area that I did last year for the first time, and I want to keep doing it because it's a representative sample of what we're seeing in the 4th Judicial District. Last year I pointed out 3 different types of cases. This year I'm going to point out 3 different types of cases. This first one is repeat violent offender Randy Bishop. I want to tell you just some of the stuff that he was involved with. November 2nd, 2019, he committed a homicide of Thomas Anthony Faircloth. Then November 25th, 2019, he committed an attempted homicide and many other charges. He was in custody. He was at Memorial Hospital. He overpowered a detective and was able to disarm that detective, taking the sidearm from that detective, and then fled in the hospital. But he didn't flee from the hospital before he fired several shots in the hallways of Memorial Hospital. And there were many people around. Many people could have been hit by his violent activity. Luckily, nobody did. Unfortunately, he escaped. And then a manhunt got underway to find Randy Bishop and hold him accountable. He was a violent offender who was willing to use deadly force against law enforcement and the public. Then on January 12, 2020, so just a couple of months later, he committed another attempted homicide. Remember, this is a violent offender. There's a manhunt going on, and he was stopped by Officer Bo Becker, CSPD, and the body-worn camera that I'm going to show you is from that interaction.
All right, Mr. Kane? Yeah, step out of the car for me real quick, all right? Just make sure you're in park because you're rolling forward again. No weapons on you? No, sir. All right. Oh, fuck! 27, I'm shot. 27, I'm shot.
And the reason why I wanted to show you that body-worn camera is, one, to drive home the point of just how dangerous it is for our law enforcement officers out there on the street every single day with the rise in violent crime in this community. Officer Bo Becker was conducting himself the way any law enforcement officer should in a situation like he was. Did not necessarily know that he had Randy Bishop in a traffic stop, and he was actually shot. Luckily, he was wearing body protection and wasn't killed, but he could have very easily been killed. The other reason why I wanted to include that there is just to show you the gravity of the evidence that these people have to deal with on a daily basis in making sure that we're holding offenders accountable. And I'll get to the reason for that in just a moment. Would the Randy Bishop trial team please stand up? So those folks were instrumental in holding Randy Bishop accountable. He was taken to trial on the homicide of Anthony Faircloth. He was convicted, and he is now serving life in prison without parole. That conviction also led to him taking pleas in some of those other cases because he knew he wouldn't be getting out of prison in his natural life. And so he is serving more than essentially life in prison without parole. He'll never see the light of free day again. And it's thanks to these folks. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next one is a reflection of our animal cruelty cases. The dog that you see on the screen there is named Jasmine. She was taken to, or the offender was taken to trial on April 12, 2022. In the investigation, the owner of the dog, the defendant, said that he was just trying to help the dog lay down. A veterinarian examination determined the force used was excessive and resulted in a complete break of her lower leg, as you can see in that x-ray. The dog was also suffering from other signs of abuse, including demeanor changes, hemorrhaging of eyes and ears, injury to the nose, and discovery of an older healed fracture. Healed, I should say. Ultimately, that broken leg had to be amputated. So Jasmine is now a three-legged dog as a result of that defendant's actions with Jasmine. That defendant was convicted at trial, and the judge then, when a trial happens, the judge has a lot of leeway in as far as what they can sentence to, and that judge decided to sentence that offender to probation. Could the champions for Jasmine please stand up? And that's Josie Rikus, one of our county court floaters. She's the one that took that case to trial. And then the final notable case that I want to point out for the commissioners is an organized crime case. This was an extensive investigation involving local and federal law enforcement agencies and included a presentation to the grand jury. The grand jury handed down indictments resulting in filing of 5 separate criminal cases, 4 individual defendants, and then 1 business defendant. It totaled 29 criminal counts, including COCA, which is Colorado Organized Crime. It also involved seizure of multiple Connex units containing hundreds of stolen items. It's important to note, as I talk about this specific case, that these cases are all still pending. All defendants, like we always say in every single one of our cases, are presumed innocent until proven guilty. But the reason why I wanted to put this one up there is, again, another Easter egg leading to what I'm going to talk about in just a moment. But also to point out that it shows the example and our commitment to cooperation and ability to tackle large-scale criminal enterprises with far-reaching community impact. And it's going to lead me to something else. Would the Top Dollar Pawn team please stand up? And Rachel, I'm going to make you stand up here in a minute too. So talked a little bit ago about our intelligence-driven prosecution team. I know some of you have seen this stuff already, but some of you haven't. It's important to note that this is an effort towards increasing transparency into what happens in the criminal justice system. This and our other statistics slides are a direct result of that IDP effort. I want to point out that transparency requires accuracy of data. Inaccurate data will absolutely lead to faulty conclusions. The data that we're pushing out publicly for the first time in the state of Colorado is at least 99% accurate, if not 100% accurate. This is something that's unique to any other area in the state. No other state or any other DA's office in the state of Colorado is doing this. This gives public access to real-time data for the first time, and it's customizable. I was planning on showing you exactly how that works, but I think I've taken already too much time, so I'm not going to do that. But if any of you want to go to our web page and click on the data dashboards link, you can see that and play with it, filter the data to what you want to look at, and just see what's happening in the criminal justice system here in the 4th Judicial District. So now I've left a couple of hints. Our economic crime unit is being transformed into a new organized crime unit. It's a team of seasoned trial attorneys with dedicated support resources, 1 senior DDA, and I want to point her out again. So Rachel, will you please stand up? So Rachel's the one that presented that Top Dollar Pawn case to the grand jury. She is overseeing our organized crime unit, and this is going to give us flexibility to really go after some very specific types of cases. Thank you, Rachel. Focus is going to be on prolific offenders, pattern crimes, and complex cases, including aggravated robbery, property crime rings, large-scale drug trafficking organizations, and complex economic crime. And so, just to reiterate, the new effort going into this new year, 2023, is to change our economic crime unit into an organized crime unit to allow us more flexibility to go after these far-reaching criminal enterprises and hold them accountable. And it will be a trial-focused team, meaning that we're going to make, if we make plea offers, they're going to be very tough plea offers, which oftentimes means that defendants are going to opt for trial instead. So this is a trial-focused team. So now we get to our budget and critical needs. I've talked before about legislation that was passed creating a 48-hour arraignment requirement. And what that means is that when a defendant is picked up and put into custody, they have to be heard by a judge within 48 hours to have bond set for that particular defendant. That means that our attorneys, support staff, folks are working on weekends and on holidays now, meaning that we have to do this within 48 hours of their arrest. So if there's a long weekend, say a 4 or 5 day weekend, those are very rare, but let's say a 4-day weekend, that means that people are going to be coming in 3 times during that holiday weekend to do this docket. If it's a regular weekend, it's going to be Saturday evening when an attorney, support staff, victim advocates are all coming in. The impact that we've noticed is that $210,757 impacting our budget that we have to pay extra for overtime and incentivizing coming in on those weekend days to do that. And then we've already had some comments about the threat to wellness that the DA's office and law enforcement have to undergo. I am hoping to start a wellness program. This would augment and be in addition to our EAP, which is a fantastic resource that we all have as part of being in the El Paso County program. But it's important that we add something in that's specifically designed to the challenges that we face in the DA's office. I can tell you just from my own experience, there are some murder scenes that I'll never forget. I can still, if I think about them, can smell what they smelled like when I walked in. That's nothing different than these folks back here. They all carry that forward with them. These are unique challenges that we have to undertake, and it's not just felt by our attorneys or our investigators. Our support staff also has to deal with and process that evidence as we get ready for trial. So they have secondary trauma as a result of these violent offenses that are being committed in the community. And so this would help us put a wellness program together that's specifically designed for our team over at the DA's office. I also want to point out, too, that regrettably, we've had a history of suicide in our office. In the last 10 years, we've lost 2 separate attorneys to suicide. And I wonder if we had had a program like this, if that would have prevented it. We'll never know, obviously, but it's something that I'm committed to going forward to make sure that we have a good work-life balance, that our people are in a good situation going forward, and they can effectively process the trauma that they deal with every single day. It's important that the men and women who work diligently every day to ensure the Fourth JD remains a place where people want to live, where they want to work, where they want to play, and where they want to raise their families. And for us to achieve that goal, we have to have a healthy workplace environment, and that will go a long ways towards that. And then challenges going ahead. Obviously, I've been listening, and I know that unprecedented inflation is a challenge that everybody's facing. It's something that we have certainly faced, and this is really gets back to the thanks that I have for all of you for showing that commitment to us to help us deal with the unprecedented inflation that we're all dealing with. We also have rising crime and decreasing solve/clearance rates that we are dealing with in the DA's office and in law enforcement. I've talked extensively about the impact of fentanyl and synthetic opioids, and then the challenge of influencing in a positive way effective criminal justice legislation. Some things that I'm going to be very involved with in this coming legislative session include at least these 3 things. Possession of a weapon by previous offender was loosened up a couple of years ago. They came back this last session to try to tighten it up, but they left 2 huge loopholes. So a person that commits aggravated motor vehicle theft or commits distribution of drugs in our community can legally possess firearms. That is a wrong that needs to be corrected by this legislature and this governor. And so I'll be fighting to add those 2 back to the list of predicate felonies to allow us to charge that offense again. Aggravated motor vehicle theft, we've talked about that already, but it's important that we remove the value-based structure that we have in that statute. A $2,000 or less car has a much bigger impact on a poor family than if one of our cars is stolen, who can afford good insurance and potentially can go rent a car and can continue on with our business. Typically, that poor family is going to have 1 vehicle. Without 1 vehicle being stolen, currently would qualify as a misdemeanor offense, meaning that person's not going to spend time in jail, meaning that they can go out and steal more cars. And so we need to close that loophole, take away the value, make every stolen vehicle a felony, and also add in, hopefully, that if somebody is convicted of more than 1 aggravated motor vehicle theft charge, that they have to serve a mandatory prison. And then also, I hope to fix the distribution resulting in death statute. We added that into the statute this year with fentanyl, but it leaves a huge loophole as well. Methamphetamine overdose deaths have risen just as dramatically as fentanyl overdose deaths. Not to the same number, but it's not far behind. And so we need to close that loophole by making it, if you distribute any drug and it causes an overdose death, you should be going to prison. And I hope to close that loophole with the legislature this year. With that, I would ask the board if you have any questions.
Great. Are there any questions from any of the Commissioner Williams?
Well, first, I noticed on the chart the number of cases we're handling compared to the 18th Judicial District, which is just getting split. And it makes you wonder if there's a way we could split ours, but there truly isn't. And so I really appreciate, because I know for many years, I know how hard you work and sometimes the understaffing levels that we've experienced. So I really appreciate that. As far as the legislative priorities, are those going to come through the DA's council? Are you pushing those yourself?
All of those have been vetted through the DA's council and have been approved to some degree or another. But I'll be working closely, hopefully, on getting other people to buy into that. A lot of that's going to determine, though, if we can get some sort of balance in the legislature. And I don't want to turn this into a political discussion, but we do need to get some balance up there so we can have some effective and common sense solutions to these problems.
Yes, and as those bills are introduced, if you could let us know, because I know that, of course, we're very interested and we have a very active legislative team, but also over at Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments. These are issues that affect every community within our area of 3 counties. And so I think we could also have some effective lobbying from other communities and city members.
Absolutely will do
Thank
that.
you.
Yep.
Yes, thank you for those comments. Commissioner Bremer.
Yes, I just wanted to thank you for taking care of your people, for letting us put names with faces and understand who it is that's backing you up, backing up our first responders, public safety, the whole public safety field, in making sure that that people are brought to justice and also appropriately given the opportunity to work through things and become productive members of society. I think you guys do a great job of balancing both. And, that's a testament to your leadership. But particularly thank you for paying attention to the mental wellness. And I'm very supportive of that piece of your critical needs. I'm supportive of both, for the record. But I think it takes some real leadership to admit when organizationally we need to also provide help to all of our employees and ensure that they can continue doing what they went into a field to do, and also keep our community safe. Overall, I can't say enough about just appreciating the way you're approaching this and taking care of our people and the whole community's safety at the same time. It's a lot on your shoulders, and you do it very gracefully.
Well, thank you so much, Commissioner.
Great, thank you. Okay, I just thank you. I have a couple of comments as well. I recently did a ride along with one of the deputy sheriffs. Not directly connected to your office, of course. They were busy. One single shift, 2 arrests and a stolen vehicle recovery, and then a whole lot of smaller stuff in between those bigger things. And I thought that was really something. So we are busy, delivering public safety, and I know that your team is busy as well. I also, here in the recent past, read a book that I thought was really interesting. It's a book written by David Grossman called On Combat. There may be some people that are familiar with it. Now, he kind of came out of the military community and was trying to figure out the psychological aspects of PTSD and how do you address that. But recently now, maybe the last 15 years, he's moved much more into law enforcement and kind of the trauma that our own employees, maybe a little bit more focus on sworn officers, but really anybody that sees some of the worst of humanity can be deeply affected by what they see. So I would encourage you to consider reading that book, because I found it to be fascinating. And there's a lot he has in the book about how we can remain strong in the face of some of the terrible things that we see in law enforcement and public safety. But maybe the key takeaway was about making sure that we always have an exceptionally strong support team for everybody that goes through that. And that can be manifested in a lot of different ways. I kind of bring it up because you brought up the wellness program, and that to me does sound like just a great idea. I would suggest reading that book On Combat. It's kind of a big read, but he has a lot of scientific data in it that I thought was really, really interesting. And I'll also express my thanks to your entire team. Just keep up the great work. It is so important that we continue to remain vigilant and do this work. And I know that you all are delivering a lot of really great outcomes. And I'm glad that you're collecting that data and the statistics so that we can see some of what is getting delivered. So my thanks to that as well.
Thank you,
All right.
Commissioner.
I'm sorry?
I said thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Yes. All right, Commissioner Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just reminded of a couple things, one or two that you mentioned as well. Thank you for all the hard work, your team and staff, for all the great work you do. I appreciate the tough on crime stance that you support, and I'm very thankful for that. And I just want to reiterate what you touched on was I really hope that the legislature starts helping you instead of hurting our public safety with some of those decisions. And again, you showed one, unfunded mandates. That takes away dollars either from the county to do from other things or from your own department to do for things that are important to making sure that we're taking care of our community and the safety of our community. And so again, I thank you for that.
Thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate that.
All right, Commissioner Geithner. And thank you, Commissioner Gonzalez.
Great comments so far, and so much that I agree with, but I wanted to just comment on a couple of things. Number one, I think it is absolutely remarkable from the party in control of our state that we have allowed felons to have guns while attacking the rights of law-abiding citizens. And that's just so shocking that that would even be allowed to happen. It's just shocking, and I hope that you are able to do that. I know that I will do anything I can to support that effort. I know that the board feels that way as a whole. But if we need to be up at the Capitol, whatever we need to do, it's important and it's necessary, and I'm committed to that. I also wanted to thank you for focusing in on victims. I think that has been something that has been very hard for me, is hearing so often focusing on offenders. And of course, we want to see those folks rehabilitated to the very best of all of our ability, but we cannot forget that saying forgiveness and grace for someone who continues to commit crime after crime means that we're allowing victim after victim. And I thank you for focusing in on that and just reminding us that there are victims, and we can want to have compassion and grace and all of those things for offenders, but if we're not careful, that becomes lopsided, and we're no longer having compassion and grace for our victims. And so I really appreciate that. And truly, I just want to say thank you for your leadership. Fantastic presentation. Though the video was hard to watch, it's important to see the reality of what's going on out there. It's far too easy to ignore it otherwise. So I'm just very grateful for your leadership, grateful for your phenomenal team. I know that this is probably one of the hardest times in terms of public safety that we've seen in Colorado in quite some time, and I'm grateful that this community is in your hands. And I know that you will do everything that you can. And I just also want to say that I will be praying for you as well as your entire team, because I know that the work that you have to do is difficult, and I'm also supportive of the request and look forward to being able to do what we can to support in what I know are just incredibly tough things that you guys have to see and deal with every day. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Great. Any other comments or questions from any of the commissioners? All right. Thank you, Mr. Allen. I appreciate the presentation today, and thank you again to the team. Coming in such big numbers, too. That's awesome. So appreciate your being here and listening in to the presentation.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
You're welcome. All right. So our next item looks like we did complete facilities and strategic infrastructure management. So I think it's Citizen Outreach Group, Mr. Jim Godfrey.
Good afternoon, members of the commissioners. My name is Jim Godfrey. It's my honor to represent the other members of the Citizens Outreach Group today and brief you of our activities for the year. So these are our responsibilities, where at least once a year we have to review the county's strategic plan. And I'll tell you that as a retired military guy who's been through and built a lot of strategic plans, I'm very impressed with the detail, the structure, and the manner in which that strategic plan is being put together. And I think that the county will benefit. I've even heard county employees make comments unsolicited that what they're doing affects what their goals are that are set in their Pacific. And so for the base level employees that are out doing the work to know how what they do affects a strategic plan indicates to me that that plan is being well communicated down to the lowest levels. And so I was very impressed with that. We did have also with the review of public safety, and we've looked at the 5-year financial roadmap on those as well. So our accomplishments this year, as I did mention, we did review that plan. I was very impressed with that. Sheriff Elder gave us a great review of the public safety tax and got into a lot of detail about that. And then this year we had a Citizens College. And that Citizens College was this year, the format was it was stretched out over 5 weeks. We had some Saturday classes and some Wednesday evening classes, and we covered all of the major divisions within the county. Little disappointed in the total attendance, but we're taking some surveys, and we hope to use what we've learned this year going forward, and we're in discussion about whether to do one for next year. So hopefully we'll learn from that as well. We're also taking a little look at a future direction for the COG. So my report to you is that by the end of the year, we will have accomplished all of the things that we're set forth to accomplish as a Citizens Outreach Group. And then this past Monday, Nikki gave us a great presentation on the balanced budget and critical needs and financial condition as well. Great presentation, super complicated budget. Being a retired budget person myself, I know how much work goes into putting something like that together. And I applaud her and her staff for a great presentation and good work. And that's about all I have. Any questions for me?
All right. Are there any questions for Jim?
No
Yes.
questions, just a comment.
A comment, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to thank you for your leadership, but all of your volunteer fellow COG members. You all are one of many, many volunteer boards that we rely on to ensure that that really what the county does is open, is transparent, is accessible, and that we have ambassadors and advocates out there who can very clearly answer questions to the level of understanding the budget and the mechanics of a public safety tax. So I appreciate your service in particular, but all of our volunteer boards that that really have a small piece to say about this entire budget that you've seen. And you're the one here right now, but again, many of our citizen boards kind of have. They have either some input or some output as a result of this budget, and you as the COG leader are the group that that we rely on to answer those questions, to make sure that the citizens that would like to come and comment on this in the next few hearings know how and when to do that, or know how and when to ask those of you who know it well the questions. So thank you.
And thank you. I'll pass that along. Thank you.
Great. And yeah, so I appreciate all the work the COG is doing as well. And Commissioner Bremer and I are the liaisons to the COG, so I've been to several of the meetings. And, I participated in one of the Citizen College events when that was I think the night for the elected officials. And I don't know, I kind of liked the new structure that you all designed into it, which was not necessarily needing somebody to go to every course or every class, that you could pick and choose. If you did go through all of them, you would have kind of a graduation component to it. But if you didn't, you could at least go to just the one course or class, maybe the one on infrastructure or the one on maybe human services and something. And I kind of liked that. Maybe the participation wasn't as much as we were hoping for, but it was still on the order of about 20 people, I think, or some number like that. So it wasn't anywhere real small either. So I'm hopeful that we'll consider the idea of continuing that in some way. And I think we can just maybe work on refining it and seeing if there's a way to take what you all have built on and maybe try to figure out a way to get more participation and keep doing it. Because I think it remains an issue for the county about talking to our citizens and helping them understand what we do for them so that they can interact with us and tell us if they like what we're doing or tell us that, you know, they have a different type of feedback. They'd like to see something different. I think that's really important. So I don't know. I thought it was a good effort, and certainly everything can always be improved upon, but I liked it. And I think I'm hopeful the COG will continue to work on that and see if we can get, you know, even to something bigger than that, than what we did this last round.
Yeah, well, thank you for those comments. I was looking up an email. I failed to mention it. We had, the format was a little different. When I went through years ago, I think 2016 or so, maybe even before that, it was all on Saturdays, and it was pretty much of a full day. And so we put together a subcommittee that looked at what would be a good format for that. And with parents participating in children's sports and these kind of things, Saturdays tend to get bogged down with other things running around. And so we tried the midweek Wednesday thing. And I know that put a little bit of a burden on the staff of the various divisions that participated, and we certainly appreciate their effort. We limited our class, the registrations to 30. With the intent of not making such a large group, particularly when we were traveling or going into other workplaces to visit. And so we had 23 individual participants, about 15 per session on average, and we had 6 that went to all 5 sessions and graduated. We put together a T-shirt with a 2022 Citizens College graduate for it. So a little advertising on the back. AMR stepped up and provided those shirts for us. And so we are taking a look. We're going to send out some surveys that will say, hey, you signed up, but you didn't come. Was there some reason that we not offer what you wanted? Were there some improvements, some things like that? So we want to try to get some feedback, and we'll put together another subcommittee and look through that and try to make it better next time.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you.
Godfrey. Appreciate your time and your participation here in our meeting. All right, Nikki, I think you're up to do kind of a close-up update.
Thank you, Commissioner. At this time, I typically would give you any updates in the budget itself, since that budget is prepared with estimates as we go through the year. There isn't anything at this point that we need to estimate or change our estimates on. The revenues are continuing to come in as we planned, and so we're still in the same spot with everything that we did this year. I do know that our county administrator would like to say some words about the budget. So at this point, I think I would turn it over to him.
All right, very good.
Yeah, thank you, Nikki. As we kind of wrap up this presentation, I simply wanted to thank honorable commissioners for your support on the budget and your involvement. There has been heavy involvement by all of you individually and collectively outside of this meeting, and I'm very appreciative of that. I want you to know that we've presented a fiscally responsible budget that focuses in on essential services in El Paso County. We had to think things differently. I challenged staff on a number of areas in which we need to have different solutions to the problems we've been encountering. Part of that was shrinking the footprint of our FTE count, as we've talked about. We've worked with every countywide elected office, and they're in support of the proposed budget. I've been very hands-on on this budgeting process. I reviewed every line of the budget. I looked at every slide of the PowerPoints that were presented today and proposed some changes that were presented today. Lastly, I want you to know that we have and Nikki and I have talked extensively about an economic downturn and what that looks like in future years. So just simply know that this budget thinks about and considers a downturn in future years, and we feel comfortable with what we've proposed today. So with that said, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments from any of the commissioners for the county administrator? Oh, Commissioner Williams,
I first.
and then Commissioner Gonzalez go.
Actually, I don't have one for the county administrator, but thank you very much because, well, I know Nikki did a lot of the work you did too, so we appreciate that. Did we get our sales tax revenue numbers for this most previous cycle? I'm just curious because the city keeps having these huge growth months.
Yeah, so we have received ours. Ours are not quite at the level of the cities. The month of, well, I have to do some math in public. The month of August 2022, which is the most recent data we have, which we receive in October, it was up 8.75% for the month. But year to date, only just a little over 6%. And if you remember my budget presentation from several weeks ago, we're projecting the end of this year to come in at 6%. And so that fit exactly with our trend. We did have some concern the month before. It was only up 1%, where the cities was up almost 8%. And so there was a discrepancy there. We've continued to look into that. But we feel confident that the number for us at the end of the year will be close to somewhere around 6%.
Yes, it seems like someone at the city was quoted in the newspaper as saying it has something to do with all of the apartment builds in the city, which I thought was interesting. But yeah, I was just curious about that because we usually or at least come in a little close to them, but that's
Yeah.
okay.
And there are months that we aren't, depending on, we don't have the same rules. They're a home rule municipality. They do make up about 75% of our commercial collection area. And so 75% of our sales taxes sort of comes from within the city of Colorado Springs limits. And so 75% of our number is driven by their numbers.
Great, thank you very much. And Commissioner Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do want to thank you for all the great work, the county administrator, Nikki, for all this. I know in some ways it was kind of a tightening of the belt in certain aspects so that we could still fulfill all the needs, critical needs that we have, provide a little bit of support, as best possible for our employees in terms of salary and helping them to get back to where we were, especially with this inflationary period. But again, putting as much as we could into, roads, infrastructure, all the other important things. And then, as I do all the time, when is the next meeting? Because I always highlight that as I believe the one that is most critical if the public wants to weigh in, because we will make little tweaks and stuff.
Yes. So, Commissioner Vanderford, if you would not mind, I didn't bring my paper over. So the next hearing is our final direction hearing, which is on Tuesday, November.
It's November 15.
Thank you.
And I actually was going to make some comments on it on behalf of the rest of the commissioners to make sure that, we're really, really clear. We've got two more hearings. One is our budget hearing number 4, which is November 15. That is an opportunity for citizens to provide comments. So I'm very hopeful that we'll have citizens and we'll have some input and some conversation about that. And if you know anybody that has any, I'm talking to the commissioners now, if you know anybody that might have comments, please encourage them to come to that meeting. Now, also in that hearing number 4, that's when we will have our deliberations. And that will be our opportunity to provide final direction to the county with regard to maybe, we like what we've seen, but we'd like to move a little bit of money from here over to there and that kind of thing. So this November 15 is a pretty important date for all of us to consider those ideas. And what that will do is if we do have any changes in the budget, that direction will be important for the staff because they'll be able to go with that change in direction on November 15, get it embedded into the budget so it's presented on 6 December. And the final budget hearing is hearing number 5 on 6 December. And that on that date, again, we'll have opportunity for citizen comments, but that is the projected date where we vote on the budget, where we would adopt the budget. So if there are any interests in changes or little tweaks or anything like that the commissioners have, I would encourage you to bring those into the conversation on November 15, our next meeting. That's really important. Also, on the December 6th meeting, it is a resolution to adopt the 2023 budget. There will be a resolution to certify the county mill levy at that date, and a resolution to authorize the treasurer to transfer between funds. So we'll have a couple of resolutions that we'll be deliberating and voting on at that 6th December meeting. Does that help?
That is perfect. Thank you
Okay.
so much.
Great. All right. Any last questions or comments from any of the commissioners? Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you very much for the great work. It's a great presentation, very well organized, and I, again, continue to appreciate that the county staff works on so many of these issues in advance of bringing it up to us. With that in mind, I think we are concluded now with our item 8 on the agenda. Let's continue with the agenda just so that we have a proper closeout. Next item is item number 9.
Item number 9 is the addendum, and there is no addendum.
All right, and then item number 10.
Item number 10 is the executive session, and there is no request for executive session.
All right, very good. Seeing no further business on the agenda for this meeting is adjourned.